Another sport in the current year has gone by, and it's led to another cornucopia of abused fans, angry fans, or fans who didn't care about the sport until they started doing good. Welcome to baseball! After what was a completely useless regular season where you can win the title regardless of going under 500 in your own conference, we were introduced to yet another season of national postseason madness, culminating in Omaha and the tomfoolery of which happened there. But before I tell you about the losers too bad to make it, let me take a moment to tell you about today's sponsor, Prize Picks. If you've currently been watching sports lately and haven't tried Prize Picks yet, the current year is the perfect time. With the World Cup underway and several major sports seasons either starting up or heating up, there are opportunities to make elite picks every single day. What I like about Prize Picks is that it doesn't take a lot of time to figure out. You simply choose whether a player will finish with more or less in the projected stat line and build your lineup from there. There are a ton of available options too. Soccer, baseball, football, you name it, there's probably a lineup waiting for you down the road. I was actually messing around with the World Cup lineup earlier today, and it definitely made watching these matches a lot more entertaining. Whether your picks hit or completely fall apart after 15 minutes, it gives every game a little extra drama. Prize Picks is available in over 40 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Florida. And if you're new, they're offering $50 in lineups when you place your first $5 lineup. All you gotta do is download the app and use promo code HMA. Check out Prize Picks today. And of course, play responsibly, and not at all if you're playing sports. Now, speaking of, let's see which teams played themselves. Consider it a miracle you were even here. You were dead on sight in April just to have a legacy run that led you to sub 500 in the ACC. It culminated in a walk-off homer loss to the number one team in the country. You gave him hell, alright, just delayed hell.
Ground ball to third, into left field, base hit, rounding third, here comes Cody Kashimoto, and St. Mary's has won the game!
Unfucking believable. This was your moment. This is the chance you've been waiting for. 51-7 just to vanish in the postseason like it was the Pac-12 all over again. Bet you wish all those comebacks meant something now, don't ya? Join last year's Vandy as the only other one seed who couldn't even make their own regional final. At least you're synonymous with Martin Jarman. You both know how to waste money. March Madness should be all the evidence you need to explain why hinging on the success of postseason St. Mary's is a terrible idea. They had a hell of a run and took down the number one seed along the way, but they blew their entire load on playing spoiler, leaving them as prey to Cal Poly. All things considered, they'll ride into next year high knowing they caused chaos. It remains the only constant. You never met them before, but now you have. Thanks for meeting them, go ahead and perish. Number 16 seed in March meets number 4 seed in June. America East regular season champions serving as cannon fodder for elite competition. You were broke on the talent feed. For a mid-major, they put Blue Eyes White Dragon against Ricky Berwick. There wasn't any escape from the predictable outcome. I'm sure this is an unfamiliar feeling. The history of your program couldn't save you from the horrible pitching problem that peaked in the regionals. For a team that was barely getting by most of the way, it sure is impressive they found a way to win 40 games in the regular season. Expect the standard to be raised. The only thing that'll likely be raised is the amount of slurs coming out of Tom Walter's mouth. For going under 500 in the SEC and losing 8 of the 10 series, you sure did catch a lot of breaks in the postseason. Guess that's a consolation prize you get for your record against tournament teams. As is Kentucky's motto, they lost their motivation after starting 2-0 and proceeded to let the Mountaineers walk all over them. Also as the motto, go ahead and drop the bats and pick up the shovels, cause it's back to the coal mines for you. I guess our expectations for you were set too high. You won the Sun Belt, so we thought you'd have more gusto in the big dance. The pressure became too much and you fell to it. Too bad you couldn't hit a walk-off grand slam this time. Might have helped you contribute more here than Uzbekistan in the World Cup. Well, for what it's worth, it's a decent restock year after Brian O'Connor sprinted away for the different leagues narrative. Former Blue Devil coach Chris Pollard at the bare minimum has kept the wheel turning. A new pitching coach is a must-have though if you want to rise back to the championship self you once had. Hope you wished a happy Father's Day to Jacksonville State. Speaking of, what a run of the ages for the Gamecocks. Conference USA champs highlighted one of the greatest seasons the program has ever had. However, they fell victim to Cinderella on Cinderella crime. Seems to be a reoccurring trend with this program no matter the sport. Ryder, I don't even know, you know what, I'm just not going to finish that. We'll put that one-liner in the same spot as they are now. the couch. They fought the same way a 16 seed in March would, but the downfall was imminent and that showed in their inability to close games. The yearly blue ribbon courtesy of the Metro Atlantic. Nonetheless, it's a blue ribbon they'll hold on to the same way Vanderbilt holds their Compass Bowl rings. What an outlier of an athletic year this has been for the Canes, going through the big three and not embarrassing yourself in typical Miami fashion in even one of them. But don't be twisted, that doesn't mean titles. You get pantsed by your state rival and give up 31 runs to the regional implosion. Ran through on the 7th floor. Wouldn't be the first time. Well, at least this season you didn't start out 1-11. Baby steps matter when trying to get the baseball team back in order. Seemed like they had a super regional on lock until Troy locked in and your pitching forgot how to pitch. But again, you were feared again, which was fun. But maybe the mid-majors. The talent fee. Sean Thompson's awakening succeeded, to say the least. Went from only winning 17 games the previous year to winning the Atlantic 10 this season. They climbed through a shit ton to get to this point and should be appreciated for their efforts. East Carolina certainly did, made their run a little more fun. Better luck next time, Flying Chipmunks. This postseason run was a bit more of a spectacle than expected, as this team was in the bubble as late as last month, but they locked in and won the AAC tournament to make themselves feel better about what was going to happen on this day. Maybe the third time's the charm for a super regional? Not really much to say here. No shit talking could take away the euphoria from this fan base that they were just happy to be recognized for being good at something. First time in 16 years. Chris Olivier will go down in Cardinal history, but the day you get through a regional is the day Arkansas wins a national championship. Through the injury bug, pitching straight out of Missouri, and other aneurysms on the field, it was a miracle Texas State managed to pull themselves together for a regional appearance. Credit to the Sun Belt for that one. Glass cannons such as yourself unfortunately don't work on the postseason though, as you found out the hard way. You were the type of team that evaporates if hit by a paper towel too hard. You knew how this was gonna go. Michael Early at least got them back to the postseason after their title run, but this comeback season will be highlighted by the diary on display in Bluebell. Battered Aggie syndrome at its finest. Double it and pass it to the next sport. We're used to seeing SEC teams get the benefit of the doubt for going under 500 in their own conference, but give credit where it's worth to the Jackrabbits for bullshitting hard enough to win the Summit League and get a seat in a tournament they weren't going anywhere in. Your free trial to baseball expired in Lincoln. WinRAR is only purchasable for the power programs. Wow. An unparalleled moment for this administration. The Founding Fathers have been waiting for the day where the Huskers made the postseason in all three sports at once. That day had finally come. Now that they've made it, what do you think happened?
Great. What do I win?
Nothing! Now get out!
What?
Get out! And this one is driven to left field. Nolan Mack. He's coming home. Here's the throw. On to the Supers go the Rebels.
Reminder that this happened after they lost in the 14th inning to the same team. We'll remember you for placing third in the Big 12 and having 2 grand slams in the bench warmers. Even with a high national batting average and an almost record amount of stolen bases, that doesn't help too much when you're allowing more points on average than Ohio State's defense in football. Signs of a long overdue change for the nutsack program.
I'm out of here.
29 years overdue. All for it to end on a pitch clock violation. Whilst you transition to the fall, let it be known Dave Doran is still there and probably will have a longer run than Avent. Sure says a lot about this program when even this bowl of mid was one of the better moments in memory for the Knights. Offensive stagnation led to another episode of so close but so far to a super regional. But if Nebraska can win in March Madness, one day you can make it past the regionals. At least this time you remembered how many outs there are. Similar story to any mid-major Cinderellas. They had a mid-tier season, locked in for the conference tournament and won the thing, and then carried part of that momentum into the NCAA tournament to eventually succumb to talent gaps. But the last time this team made the tournament, the fans from the same city were cursing Amari Stoudemire for eviscerating Andrew Bogut's arm, so they'll take what they can get. Exact same scenario with the Flames. Yes, they didn't do much, but they showed up to take their beatings, and that's more than Vandy or LSU can say. They dominated the Missouri Valley and claimed both the regular season and conference tournament title. But alas, the Flames were snuffed out by talent. As Coach Sean McDermott put it though, this team had culture. We are talking about the correct Sean McDermott, right? 16 long years had gone by since this team's last regional appearance, so even if this was just to get out talented on the field by more significant squads, they're more than thrilled to have a shot. Besides, they won the SoCon Ds, so it's worth being remembered for only sacrifice bunts. I know this was a transitional year with James Ramsey taking the head coaching spot over piss jacket elder Danny Hall, but with how this season was going and the offense was looking, they really took after their nickname and pissed themselves out of the dance. This was your chance to escape the fate in 1994, and you didn't even get the chance to be a runner-up this time. But this season does paint a path for redemption in the program. I'm sure they won't repeat this mistake for years to come, though. Missouri State baseball is like the World Cup. It shows up once every 4 years and vanishes from our minds until the next appearance, kinda like they're hitting the moment they reach the postseason. But for the first season in the big leagues, not a bad start at all. See you again in 2030, then again though, it's probably more than I could say about Missouri. Rare to see the same team from a lower division conference rise to the occasion twice in a row, but the Huskies managed to do that after winning the Coastal Athletic again. Did so with a better record too, but depth limitations showed themselves against the higher competition and they couldn't compete once they went against the power schools. It's going to take more than that to undo 60 years of almost making it back to Omaha. Oh no. Speaking of Omaha, Big Time knows a thing or two about not doing shit about that. Couldn't even fulfill the Omaha's prophecy here because you were cooked on the grill far quicker than anticipated. That kinda makes me sad actually. The closer you are to glory, the funnier it is when you eventually collapse. At least Hunter Yurachek has a new useless stat to flex. The baseball world warned you of this outcome last year. It felt like your golden opportunity to win it all as the eventual letdown season was in the making. Well, now here you are. Shitting the bed against Northern Illinois pretty much painted what was a clear consensus that whatever was special about this program last season was no more. Foundation is still there, but the offensive talent isn't. Use the offseason to get that spark back before some other Cinderella takes your status for America's team. Forgetting the eventual loss, this was a moment 54 years in the making. The Huskies, a predominant dumpster program of baseball, finally had their breakthrough and made the tournament. It's also the first time they've ever won the MAC tournament in baseball. Holy shit, that's actually insane. With how chaotic that conference is, you'd think they'd find a way to win it at least once every decade. Nonetheless, they finished out with a program high win total and the first for the program, a tournament win. Maybe Coastal already lost their status. Seemed like their year would come eventually. 40 wins, taking down Coastal, and heading into the Red Storm with favorable projections. But alas, the Tank Knolls do what the Tank Knolls do.
Swings, weak ground ball to third. There's one, the throw across, and St. John's gets two.
Rip defeat out the jaws of victory. Baby steps here, as this time it didn't come down to a check swing. Maybe. The SWAC champs put everything they had out there to end their season, but even with the 5-hour-long game, their efforts were outdone. Nonetheless, their efforts represented the HBCU schools well because they were the only ones who represented it all. A welcome surprise for the Spartans, as 2 years ago, nobody even knew this program existed. Now they've made back-to-back NCAA tournaments off of once again winning the Big South. However, Kane Sweeney better be getting a whole lot on that contract because he'll need it to get this program past the talent on display. At least consistently. Here's Exhibit A to that rule. The Cowboys fell victim to that exact same problem. While they had their moments, they fell apart due to inconsistencies with everyone outside of Colin Ritchie. He couldn't carry the squad on his back the whole way, especially not against the different leagues principle. You're gonna have to find someone who can pitch as good as you can hit. Then you'll be a threat in the postseason. CJ Agree will have a statue in his honor somewhere across the city of Worcester. He guided Holy Cross to another Patriot League title and ran back the Conference Player of the Year award. If only you could Notre Dame the tournament because what happened there spoiled the fun to some degree. But again, I'll reiterate, you did make it. But, yeah. If I had a nickel for every time I mentioned Tarleton State doing something significant in this sports year, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't much, but it's odd it happened twice. Too bad Army wasn't around to bail you out here, though. You quite literally user-errored yourself out of the tournament. Granted, there wasn't any history for your program to teach you what not to do when the lights were at their brightest. Despite what was to be, the underdog of the story put up one hell of a fight. They may be a punchline for the baseball dance, but they'll likely be a reoccurring one. Yale baseball in this tournament is like listening to the friend whose dinner suggestion is Captain D's. You wonder why you ever invited him at all. Of course, it wasn't my choice. Your uncle over in the Ivy League brought him over and threw him into the group to try and fit in. You've seen him twice now since 2017, and every time you see him, you want to see him less. But he's family, so you have no choice in the matter. Better luck next regional. Once again, another team coming off a 16-year gap from when they last felt relevant. This is a significant milestone for the Cougars. Entering with a top 40 RPI, I'm sure the fans had expectations a little higher than be competitive every now and then. They at least filled that quota, but that came with a side of late-game collapses. Pacific baseball is a fucking mess, ain't it? Truly an enigma to see one of baseball's most historically elite programs continue to spiral down the rabbit hole of irrelevancy. If being a blue blood meant anything though, Nebraska would have had more natties than corn, and Kentucky fans would have a reason to only LARP sports during March. Mitch Canham had kept the float on water, but sooner or later, the fans will want to see this float evolve into the cruise ship it once was. Doesn't matter when the float got deflected by her Civil War state rival, that's the type of fate you could only wish on your worst enemy. Lipscomb is the definition of why the regular season in baseball is a glorified practice run. They limp-dicked the whole thing up until the tournament, where they somehow blasted past everyone in the ASUN conference, and they won the whole damn tournament. Resiliency became their key in the end, kinda like Rocky Balboa, but then you put Rocky Balboa up against Donkey Kong, and the resiliency only matters so much then. There sure are a lot of dead baseball programs getting raised from the graveyard this year, and the Bearcats are just another example of that. Jordan Bischel and his elite underling and Quentin Coates broke through the limits and moreover, broke Cincinnati's single-season records for home runs and total bases. They did the unthinkable and made the dance for the first time in their school's history. But with most programs dependent on superstars, the depth issue eventually caught up to them, and as did with most programs trying to come back from decades of terminal baseball AIDS, they eventually fell apart. I'd still probably take them over the Reds though. Speaking of uprisings, look who's coming back for more. While they didn't win the Sun Belt, they had as good of a performance needed to get back into the dance as an at-large bid. Despite the heavy upgrades from the season previous, a fence made of logs instead of sticks is still not enough to stop a bulldozer. Do this again like 15 times in a row though, and you're bound to watch someone beat themselves down the road eventually. That island ain't long enough for this shit. Despite being picked to finish last in the conference tournament standings, this version of the Boston College athletics sport set a milestone for the school in the context that they didn't completely embarrass themselves, but they went above and beyond expectations and even managed to make it all the way here to the postseason. Boy, that's a rare occasion, but they soon ran into flames and promptly combusted into them. Still, gotta be a breath of fresh air for Golden Eagle fans to see a sport they can watch without entire shame. While they didn't win the Conference USA, Liberty gets credit for not taking death this time. They outperformed themselves in the dance and nearly found a way to take their efforts to the Super Regionals. Of course, this was up until Mickey Mouse had something to say about that, but you still have the regular season title to hold on to. Do you get any hardware for that, or is it just a brag? Either way, kind of feels like a wasted effort. Figured that one or two of these little guys in the tournament were going to pop off enough to overcome the odds and get themselves into the Super Regional. But lightning rarely strikes the same place twice, and Mustangs never get struck by lightning. Odd analogy, but you get enough to know what happens next. Cal Poly's run ended in the country roads with an evisceration of which made them wonder why they even bothered to show up in the first place. But once again, it must be stated, they did indeed make it here. And that was a first in the history of this program. Just don't die next year. Okay, see, now Arkansas, this is just getting pathetic for you. What do you mean your mid-major brother-in-law is here outperforming you to this extent? As fun as it has been to watch Little Rock do the unthinkable though, these Trojans are covered up by bigger, longer Trojans. Their run ended with the knowledge that they still made it farther than most despite their lowly stature. Only one of only 2 4 seeds to reach the Super Regionals. I hope you got a big gold star for that one. Some more Trojan talk for you. Andy Stanky Leg deserves a lot of appreciation for USC Nation for getting the program back on their feet and furthermore. Only 1 home loss, 47 wins, and a Super Regional for the first time in over 20 years. But as the football coverage would suggest, it was long overdue for this team to ruin all of that with a clutch score allowed.
9, the pitch. Hall swings and drives one deep to center field. Takeuchi going back, and he North Carolina is going back to Omaha!
User errors like that make you the perfect fit for Southern Cal. Auburn was another team who had themselves a great season, but when they shitted all over themselves to open up regional play against Milwaukee, it told everyone that the barn was not built for the long run. They may have gotten past their regional, but it left them to be consumed by a very familiar foe. You threw away basketball for this? Too bad there's no NIT to make yourselves feel better about that, but I'm sure Butch Thompson will be back. I'm as sure of that as I am their football team allowing 40 points a game on average this season. So that's what it was, huh? Instead of trying to revive your failing basketball program, you pull this shit straight out of left field and revive a graveyard of a baseball program. Took you damn well long enough. The last time you won the conference title was when Mark Mangino was getting ready to take over the football squad. But Dan Fitzgerald went well above and beyond what his pay grade was by getting the Jayhawks to their first ever Super Regional. And just like their heyday, Oklahoma was there to submerge them whole for a 2-day stretch. Still far more than their expectation, which I don't think there really was any to begin with. That'll change now. You're welcome. Considering the fact this team opened the season with 6 consecutive losses, their comeback arc was very impressive. They're the only other 4 seed to reach the tournament, which is funny since they don't usually show up at all if the lights are too bright. That's why the moment they made it back to the Super Regionals, they too were washed away by the Crimson Storm. You might have enough talent to overcome the ACC, but the SEC is a whole different story. Yes, that does apply here in baseball too. Try to forget about your hopes for next season, for that'll likely cause the whole team itself to blow up. This tournament was set up for the Duckies to have a little fun on their way to Omaha. Getting to take down their state rival in an easy setup for a regional made the fan base feel good about taking on Texas. But that did not last long. The Duckies allowed 17 runs in the next 2 games to erase their hopes and dreams of getting their squad back to the biggest dance. But after 5 straight seasons, one would have to think the breakthrough will come sooner or later. If not, the running gag of the fall shall run onward through every other time of the year as well. I mean, you can't win a natty in any of the other sports anyway. Stark Vegas didn't know what to expect under longtime Cavalier, now cowbell wielder, and Brian O'Connor. But it's safe to say that, at least for now, they got what they wanted. A run to the Super Regionals amidst a coaching change is something most fans would be pleased with. But usually it's Georgia's job to choke in the big leagues, not vice versa. The Cowboys had the golden opportunity to take themselves to Omaha, and not once, but twice, they saw themselves get absolutely cucked by the usual Georgia Mickey Mouse bullshit. They should be used to it by now, but 7 runs! 7 runs! What the hell were you all doing? You can never avoid being outshined by Big Brother, huh? Well, there goes that shine. Credit to them for making it when they weren't supposed to, but I guess it shouldn't be shocking that their luck eventually ran out. You went sub 500 in the SEC and you're shocked the elite talent on the field dismantled you? And Troy? Striking out 14 times in the opener isn't going to get you anywhere other than a speed run to the couch. Welcome to hell. There's plenty of company down here. Blame the refs all you want to, but any team at that conference patch has no business getting clowned on by a Trojan man. At least now you have an excuse to devote all your rage towards one man, Elaine Kiffin. What the f*** was that? This is your shot to claim some sort of relevance in baseball too, since your stingy ass wants to be good at all 3 at once. You claimed that notion already, but you could have at least pretended like you wanted it. No doubt Rob Vaughn is doing great things with the Tide, but damn, watching that on national television must have been a pain. The one time the nation in bulk is actually paying attention to baseball. And I'm sure your fan base is probably having a harder time doing it because of NASCAR. Again, though, you made it to Omaha for the first time since 1999. So when you come back, shoot for more than 2 runs. I feel like that's an achievable goal, I'd have to believe. Oh, I'm sorry, was I supposed to start with win? Well, daggum, we were all rooting for you. From all of us here watching from home, there was no better outcome than letting the non-power conference team troll everyone by pulling off the bullshit and win the whole thing. Skylar Meade overcame a mountain of hurdles to make it here, similar to Coastal last season, but the pressure they faced up against the Couchburners was too much to handle. They got belted by West Virginia twice. The depth was only half of what the Mountaineers had, and by the end of the 3rd game, they were gassed all to hell, and that paved the way for the unfortunate outcome. But they not only reached the first College World Series, but they won a game. Whether or not you make it back in my lifetime, the Trojan man will remember this moment for generations. They'll talk about this day the same way LSU fans talk about teams not named LSU. Just from their presence, I could taste the boiling rage the Texas A&M fan base is feeling in the current moment. This team stole their coach, and now their identity on their way to a strong performance in their 39th run to Omaha. They were extremely talented on the field, and their domination showed. However, for whatever the reason may be, they just could not beat Georgia. Once again, the Dogs ran through this team and Jim Schlossnagle like his name was Steve Sarkisian. Still a major improvement for this program, but clearly they've still got some work to do. Nolan Kane getting yanked by A&M proves that they, as well as many others, are hungry for revenge. If you want to compete, you better be ready to face this challenge. Just try not to cry when the spooky hand signal is made again. Back-to-back trips to the Super Regional, and now an appearance in the first College World Series ever. You'd think that this was their turn to rise to the occasion and represent the Big 12 the right way. They damn well tried. The bullpen rotation was clutch in most situations, but unfortunately for you, you faced the one competent team from the ACC. The Tar Pits went the Kansas route and locked in for this sport. Just like Texas and many others, you lose to a good team once, and they're likely to get into your head on the next one, a result that hindered their pitching too far in the brawl for the right to play in the Natty. I'd go as far to say the team itself was hindered to all hell in that last game. Still, it was a phenomenal breakout season for Steve Sabbins, who's already talking about crediting the culture for this, so I'm sure this will end great. They did it again!
To win, you gotta not lose.
Here's the Wes Johnson clubhouse. Come inside, there's chokes inside. It's the Wes Johnson clubhouse. Okay. Oh yeah, that's my championship right there. Okay, all right. Let's see what unholy ball awaits on the real national championship.
I'm not talking about this.
Usually my postseason handouts are given to the losers, and while it would be in character to hand North Carolina a video of their own when they lost, they already got one during the basketball meltdown. That's one more than what they deserve per year. If you're going to outright refuse to show up to the biggest game of your program's lifetime, then you should expect the same level of effort in return. Besides, you'll get plenty of spotlight and laughs at your expense every Saturday in the fall. Everyone wins in the end, except your bullpen, of course, but if nothing else, I'll let you tag along with the motto of which you'll do a phenomenal job following. Yell it with me if you know it, everybody. Say conference! The only negative thing to come out of your yearly postseason aneurysm this time is that I can't give you Clown of the Week, for that honor belongs to my ex-girlfriend. Thanks for doing like her and wasting everyone's time. But to pivot our attention over to the Sooners, Boomer Doomer be damned. The moment I saw the softball team uncharacteristically collapse in the Super Regionals, I knew there was cataclysmic bullshit in the making. The SEC had 8 different contenders all season long, and it was one of the only ones who weren't contenders that wound up pulling off the hoo-ha in the end. What you just saw was like this year's Auburn getting into March Madness over Miami of Ohio, and then proceeding to ass blast everyone into oblivion on their way to a national title. Of all the Skip Johnson teams we expected to reach the mountaintop, the team that was the power hit or die was not the one we expected it to be. They had the talent to do it, but lacked the execution all season long to the point we expected them to be a placeholder as a free win in the regionals like the last 3 seasons. Hell, they came out of the regular season with a losing record in the conference. Only such wise words you know all too well from Lane Kiffin could explain the reasoning behind this phenomenon.
You might as well be in different leagues, not conferences, different leagues.
It applies to all sports, especially baseball. The last 7 years are proof of that. This team went into the tournament guns blazing and didn't stop at any point. Ironically enough, the ones who are most stunned about this outcome are probably the Oklahoma fans themselves. Skip's face may remain the same no matter what emotion he's feeling, but somehow through this tournament, the team underwent a chaotic change and ended everyone's season. Kyle Branch consumed Chapel Hill alive, among others. His awakening created what was a legacy run through a gauntlet comparable to your yearly South Carolina football schedule, and it peaked in a national championship ass-whooping so unsightly that the Tar Pit fanbase pivoted to the loser's fan favorite, blaming the umps. The wagon shall stand tall on this day, for Oklahoma has reclaimed the dominance in the college baseball world for the first time in 32 years, in a very similar fashion too. Ride that success while you can, for postseason accomplishments are outlawed in the fall. Skip Johnson may have a higher points per game average than Brent Venables. Until the next one, we'll see you soon, and power to Tardaria.
At
Too much time, and that apparently is strike 3, and the game is over. And that's how it ends. And Elliott Avent, whose head coaching career at NC State has just come to an end, is livid. Oh my goodness. What a way for this to end.